Summary: The Monkey King, after enduring hardships, found Bodhi Patriarch on Fangcun Mountain in Lingtai. The Patriarch granted him the name Sun Wukong. Wukong mastered the 72 transformations and learned the skill of cloud somersault, boasting of his abilities. Wukong angered the Patriarch, leading to his expulsion. Returning to Flower Fruit Mountain, he discovered that the water curtain cave had been taken over by ruthless bandits. It is said that the Monkey King, in his quest for immortality, set out to seek the guidance of deities, immortals, and Buddhas. Riding a wooden raft, he crossed the vast ocean and arrived at the boundaries of the southern panorama continent. The Monkey King abandoned the raft and stepped ashore, where he found people fishing and clam digging by the seaside. Approaching them, the Monkey King made a funny face, causing the people to drop their baskets and abandon their nets, fleeing in all directions. One person, slower in running, was caught by the Monkey King. Terrified, he pleaded for mercy repeatedly. The Monkey King chuckled to himself and stripped the person's clothes off. Putting them on himself, the person fled in a panicked scramble. The Monkey King strode confidently into the marketplace, mimicking human postures and gestures, imitating their way of speaking and accents. For several days, the Monkey King moved back and forth, earnestly seeking out deities and immortals. However, the individuals he encountered were all preoccupied with busyness, striving for fame and gain. 8 or 9 years passed, and the Monkey King hadn't even caught a glimpse of the path to immortality. What should he do? On this day, the Monkey King once again arrived at the Western Ocean, thinking that there must be immortals beyond the sea. So, as before, he boarded the wooden raft and drifted across the Western Sea. The Monkey King arrived at the boundary of Western Ox Head continent and stepped ashore. After walking for a while, he came across a towering mountain, which was truly magnificent. The Monkey King quickly ascended to the mountaintop to take a look. What a marvelous mountain it was, with peculiar peaks and strange rocks, layer upon layer, towering heights and deep valleys, covered in lush vegetation. As the Monkey King enjoyed the view, he pondered, there must be immortals dwelling in this mountain. Just as he was about to search carefully, he suddenly heard a chorus of singing coming from deep within the forest. The Monkey King hurriedly bounced over and entered the woods, stretching his neck and tilting his ear to listen closely. The song went, I do not possess clever schemes or intricate calculations. Unbothered by glory, shame, joys, or sorrows, wherever we meet, it's either the path of immortality or the Tao. The Monkey King was filled with joy. The immortals must be hiding here. The Monkey King quickly leaped into the forest but saw a woodcutter chopping wood with a hatchet. The Monkey King jumped forward and called out, Respected immortal, your disciple is here to pay respects. The woodcutter hastily dropped his axe and said in a fluster, Forgive me, I am just a rustic villager. How could I possibly be worthy of the title immortal? The Monkey King said, If you are not an immortal, how could you speak like one? The woodcutter replied, I won't hide it from you. The lyrics I'm singing are from a song called Fragrance Filling the Courtyard. It was taught to me by an immortal, who instructed me to recite it when I'm troubled or weary. The Monkey King asked where the immortal lived. And the woodcutter pointed towards the mountain, saying, "This mountain is called Fangcun Mountain in Lingtai. Inside the mountain, there's a cave named the Cave of the Slanting Moon and 3 Stars. Within the cave resides an immortal known as Bodhi Patriarch." The Monkey King wanted to take him along, but the woodcutter adamantly refused, explaining that he had an 80-year-old mother to care for. With no other choice, the Monkey King had to ask for detailed directions, bid farewell to the woodcutter, and then made his way out of the woods, heading south. After walking 7 or 8 miles, he indeed spotted a cave dwelling. The entrance was surrounded by thousands of emerald bamboo shoots and 10,000 pine and cypress trees. The cave's entrance was tightly shut. On the cliff across from the cave, there stood a large stone tablet, over 10 feet tall, with 10 large characters inscribed on it. Fangcun Mountain in Lingtai, Cave of the Slanting Moon and 3 Stars. Seeing this scene, the Monkey King didn't dare to rashly knock on the door. Instead, he jumped onto a nearby pine branch and picked some pine nuts to eat. After a while, there was a "ya" sound, and the cave door swung open. A celestial youth walked out, with a unique and handsome appearance, completely free of any worldly demeanor. The youth exclaimed, "Who's disturbing this place?" Upon hearing this, the Monkey King quickly swallowed the pine nuts he was chewing, and with a swift movement, he rolled down the tree. Approaching respectfully, the Monkey King earnestly said, "How can you call it disturbance? I am a disciple on a quest to learn the Tao and seek immortality." The youth chuckled and said, "My master instructed me to open the door, mentioning that a practitioner had arrived. Is it you?" The Monkey King quickly responded, "Yes, it's me." The youth said, "Follow me." The Monkey King straightened his clothes and concealed his monkey appearance, then followed the youth into the cave. The youth led the Monkey King through layers of temple doors until they reached the base of a jade platform. There, they saw the Patriarch Bodhi seated on a high platform, with 30 young immortals attending below the platform. The Monkey King prostrated himself and performed a series of loud kowtows, making a series of thudding sounds as his head touched the ground more than 10 times. While doing so, he continuously said, "Master, Master." Disciple pays respects, pays respects. The Patriarch Bodhi spoke, "Where do you come from? Clearly state your surname and given name before continuing with the bowing." The Monkey King had just uttered the words Eastern Victory Divine Continent, Flower and Fruit Mountain, Water Curtain Cave, when the Patriarch immediately ordered, "Get out." The monkey was flustered and continued bowing. "Did I say something wrong, Master? Have I angered you?" The Patriarch angrily exclaimed, "Eastern Victory Divine Continent is separated from here by 2 vast oceans. How could you have arrived here from that land? Clearly, you're trying to deceive me." The Monkey King recounted how he had arrived here, and the Patriarch's anger subsided a little. He then asked the Monkey King about his surname. The Monkey King didn't understand what surname meant, so he casually replied, "When people scold me, I don't get angry. When people hit me, I don't get annoyed. I've lived my whole life without a surname." The Patriarch also chuckled, "Not about this nature. I'm asking who your parents are." Hearing that the Monkey King sprang out of a stone, the Patriarch felt a sense of relief and said, since you're born of heaven and earth, stand up and take a couple of steps for me to see." The Monkey King jumped up and walked back and forth with a limp for 2 rounds. The Patriarch said, "You look like a macaque who eats pine nuts. I'll give you the surname Sun. If I were to take you as a disciple, according to the naming sequence, it should be the Wu generation. How about calling yourself Wukong?" The Monkey King's heart burst with joy, and he danced around exclaiming, "Great, great, great! From today onwards, I shall be called Sun Wukong." After paying respects to his master, Sun Wukong first learned some basic manners and etiquettes, and also engaged in some manual labor tasks. In the mornings, he joined his senior disciples in burning incense and practicing calligraphy, learning proper language and manners. During his free time, he tended to the flowers and gardens, chopped wood, and kindled fires. Unknowingly, 7 or 8 years went by. One day, the Patriarch ascended the platform and sat high, expounding the great Tao. He alternated between speaking about the Tao and discussing meditation, his words flowing like a torrential downpour. Wukong listened with a smile on his face, sometimes scratching his head in deep thought. Later on, unable to contain himself, Wukong's hands and feet started to fidget. Seeing this, the Patriarch sternly exclaimed, "Wukong, why are you behaving so recklessly and not listening to my teachings?" Blushing, Wukong defended himself. "Disciple is earnestly listening, but Master's teachings are so captivating that I couldn't help but react this way." The Patriarch nodded and said, "That's good. You've been here for 7 or 8 years now. What aspect of the Tao do you want to learn from me?" Wukong replied, "Following the guidance of the Master, I just wish to attain some essence of the Tao." However, when the Patriarch wanted to teach Wukong the art character from the Sanliuling side doors, which was about divination and fortune-telling, Wukong shook his head and said, "I won't learn it. I won't learn it." The Patriarch then asked about the still character door, which was about meditation and sitting in stillness, achieving tranquility and inaction. Wukong waved his hand, saying, "I won't learn it. I won't learn it." He then mentioned a few more character paths, but Wukong realized that none of them were related to attaining immortality, so he refused to learn any of them. The Patriarch grew annoyed, and with a stern tone, he jumped down from the high platform, shouting, "You little monkey! You refuse to learn this and that. What exactly do you want?" Right away, the Patriarch raised his ruler and gave 3 sharp strikes on Sun Wukong's head. He then turned and walked into the inner chamber, closing the central door behind him, leaving behind a group of astonished and stunned disciples. Those disciples regained their senses and all started reproaching Sun Wukong. "You mischievous monkey! You dared to defy the Patriarch. You're in for it now." The disciples scolded in a clamor, and Sun Wukong remained unperturbed, simply grinning and laughing along. As night fell, the disciples went to sleep. Sun Wukong pretended to close his eyes, but after a while, he sneakily lifted his eyelids to glance around. With great patience, Sun Wukong waited until the time was near midnight. He got up gently, put on his clothes, and tiptoed to open the front door and slipped out. Taking a small path, Sun Wukong arrived at the back door of the master's residence. He saw the door slightly ajar and couldn't help but mutter with joy. Indeed, I guessed the true intention of my master. He entered the room quietly, and his master was sleeping inside. Sun Wukong silently approached the bedside and knelt down. After a while, the patriarch woke up and saw Sun Wukong. He scolded, "Little monkey, why aren't you sleeping properly in the front? What are you doing here?" Sun Wukong said, "Master, didn't you ask me to come in through the back door at 3 in the morning?" The patriarch couldn't help but chuckle in amusement. What a clever and tricky little monkey he had as a disciple. He had managed to solve the puzzle I presented. It turned out that when the patriarch struck 3 times, it was a signal for him to come at 3 in the morning, and the patriarch's posture of walking away with folded hands behind his back was an indication for him to enter through the back door. In order to pass on the secret passage, the patriarch said, "Since you have a connection with the Tao, come closer and listen carefully." Wukong bowed to express his gratitude and eagerly listened, cleansing his ears to pay full attention. The patriarch uttered a mantra, and as he did, Wukong felt a divine blessing wash over him. Meticulously memorizing every detail in his heart, having received the teachings, Wukong bowed deeply to express his gratitude to his master. Then, he quietly exited through the back door and retraced his steps to the front door, silently returning to his sleeping spot. He noticed the first light of dawn beginning to illuminate the surroundings. Wukong deliberately shook the bedding, creating a rustling sound, all the while exclaiming, "It's dawn. Time to wake up. Wake up. It's dawn." From that day on, Wukong began to follow the incantations taught by his master, cultivating and refining his energy, dedicating himself to practice. Unbeknownst to him, 3 more years had passed. One day, the patriarch ascended the dais and began to expound the teachings to his disciples. He inquired about Wukong's recent progress in his cultivation. Wukong replied that his understanding of the Dharma had deepened and his foundation had become stronger. The patriarch reminded, "Even though you have gained a firm foundation, you must still be cautious of the 3 calamities and 9 disasters. The 3 calamities are thunder calamity, fire calamity, and wind calamity. Each calamity can reduce a person to bones and flesh, regardless of their 1,000 years of cultivation, rendering their practice in vain." Upon hearing this, Wukong shivered in fear and bowed, saying, "I earnestly implore Master's compassion to teach me the method to avoid these 3 calamities." The patriarch said, "This method is not difficult, but it's not suitable for you, as you are different from others. Though you resemble humans, you lack one thing that they have." It turned out that the monkey had a flat face and a pointed mouth. Wukong touched his face and chuckled, "Master, you're mistaken. Even though I have less cheek, compared to having too much of this chattering pouch, it's still usable." The patriarch said, "Very well then. Which one do you want to learn? The 36 transformations of the celestial generals or the 72 transformations of the earthly fiends?" Wukong, of course, chose to learn both. The patriarch instructed Wukong to come forward and whispered a lot of things into his ear. Wukong was truly brilliant. After practicing the mantra for a short period of time, He had already mastered all 72 transformations. One day, in front of the other disciples, Wukong boasted to the patriarch that he had achieved complete mastery of his skills and was capable of ascending through the clouds. The patriarch challenged him to demonstrate. Wukong's body twitched, and he somersaulted, rising about 5 or 6 Jan Chinese measurement, roughly equivalent to 10到20 meters off the ground. He soared through the clouds and missed, and within the time it takes to finish a meal, he returned, having flown a distance of about 3 li Chinese measurement, roughly equivalent to 1.5 kilometers. With a smug expression, Wukong said, "Master, how's my flying and cloud surfing?" The patriarch smiled faintly and said, "This can't be called cloud soaring. It's more like cloud crawling." Sun Wukong was still unconvinced, and the patriarch said, "Since ancient times, immortals have roamed all 4 seas of the east, south, west, and north in a single day. That's what truly soaring through the clouds means. By that comparison, what you did can't even be considered cloud crawling." Sun Wukong clicked his tongue and sighed. "This is too difficult." "Too difficult," the patriarch replied. "There's nothing difficult in this world for someone who's determined. I'll teach you a technique called the somersault cloud based on your posture." Sun Wukong was overjoyed, and the patriarch recited the incantation. "With this cloud, twist the spell, utter the true words, clench your fist, give your body a shake and jump up, somersaulting to cover 18,000 miles in an instant." The other disciples chuckled and said, "Wukong, with this skill, you could deliver letters, pass messages, and find food wherever you go." That night, Wukong concentrated his spiritual energy and practiced repeatedly, finally mastering the somersault cloud technique. Summer arrived. One day, the disciples were playing under a pine tree, and they found Wukong in a playful and eccentric mood, his appearance changing constantly, which amused them to no end. The disciples asked, "Have you mastered the technique of avoiding the 3 calamities that the master taught you a few days ago? Show us how it's done and let us be amazed." Wukong didn't miss the opportunity to showcase his skills. He perked up, brimming with enthusiasm, and showed off his abilities, saying, "Tell me, what should I transform into for you?" The disciples clamored excitedly, "Turn into a pine tree, turn into a pine tree." Wukong twirled his fingers, recited the incantation, and in a flicker, transformed himself. Sure enough, he turned into a pine tree, lush and green, without a trace of his original monkey appearance. You couldn't find a hint of monkey in him. The other disciples applauded and praised, "Good monkey, great skill." And Wukong was even more pleased with himself. The commotion caught the attention of the patriarch, who came out to see what was happening. The other disciples quickly composed themselves and straightened their clothes, while Wukong revealed his true form and hid in the back. The patriarch scolded, "Those on the path of cultivation should speak with reverence, for words carry spiritual energy. Loose tongues breed disputes. All of you shouting and clamoring, none of this resembles the behavior of practitioners." The patriarch then inquired about the cause of the commotion earlier, and the disciples dared not conceal anything, truthfully recounting the events. The patriarch called Wukong over and scolded him, saying, Is this technique meant for you to show off in front of others? If someone else asks you to teach them, will you teach or not? If you refuse, what troubles might you cause? Regretfully, Wukong kowtowed and said, Master, please forgive me. I won't dare to do it again. The patriarch said, I don't blame you, but you don't need to stay here anymore. Wukong was startled and asked, Master, where should I go? The patriarch replied, You came from where you came, so go back there. Suddenly, Wukong realized that the patriarch was implying that his skills had matured, but his debt of gratitude to the master remained unrepaid. How could he dare to leave? The patriarch said, You don't need to think about gratitude or obligation. When you leave, you will surely stir up many troubles. As long as you don't cause any trouble for me, that will be your way of repaying me. Helpless, Wukong had to bid farewell to everyone. The patriarch reminded him, No matter when, you must not reveal that you were my disciple. If I find out, I will strip your monkey skin. Wukong firmly remembered the instructions. He recited the incantation, shook his body, and mounted the somersault cloud, flying directly back to the East Sea. In less than an hour, Wukong saw the water curtain cave on Flower Fruit Mountain. Feeling delighted, he thought to himself, When I left, I was still in a mortal body, but today, returning, I am truly transformed. Descending on his cloud, he called out, My children, your great king has returned. With his call, countless monkeys of all sizes emerged from the rocks, flowers, and trees surrounding Sun Wukong. They wailed and cried, Great king, you're so heartless. You left for so long, leaving us here to be bullied by others. Sun Wukong angrily said, Which demon dares to be so bold as to bully our territory? Tell me the details. The monkeys said, That scoundrel claims to be the demon king of chaos, and he forcefully tried to take over our water curtain cave. He stole many things and even injured many of our brothers. Upon hearing this, Wukong became furious and shouted in anger. After learning the direction of the demon king, he soared into the sky and flew straight towards the north. He arrived at a steep and lofty mountain, with a precipice in front of it. There was a cave by the water's edge, and outside the cave, a few little demons were dancing. Wukong shouted, You little demons, listen up. I am the mighty owner of the water curtain cave on Flower Fruit Mountain. What kind of insignificant creatures are you? You dare to bully my children and grandchildren? I'm here to settle the score with him. The little demons hurriedly ran into the cave, exclaiming, Great king, trouble is brewing. There's a monkey outside, claiming to challenge you for a showdown. The demon king chuckled. Those monkey spirits once mentioned that their king had left to become a monk and practice. It seems he has returned. Fetch my armor and weapons. The demon king donned his armor, wielded his sword, and accompanied by his underlings, he strode out with a furious demeanor. The monkey king saw the demon king, who was broad-waisted and towering at 3 jang in height, holding a precious sword, presenting an intimidating appearance. On the other hand, the demon king saw the monkey king, who was less than 4 feet tall and appeared to be in his early 20s, squatting with folded legs and a simian appearance. Sizing each other up, They didn't waste time with words and immediately assumed their stances for battle. To learn what happened next, please refer to the next installment.